Hi, I'm Kamal Fisher, and we are at the LD Micro Conference in Bel Air, California. That's the 14th edition of this conference. And with me is Gerald Comissing from Todos Medical. We're going to jump straight in. Gerald, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, briefly give us an overview of the company as well as mentioning the ticker.
Sure. So the ticker is TOMDF. The company is founded in Israel. It is started as a diagnostics company focused on breast cancer. So we've got two tests for breast cancer, one of which is about to re-enter the commercialization phase after we bring out clinical utility data to really get an understanding of how much we're going to get paid for the test from CMS as we launch. And then we have Alzheimer's testing, and we also do COVID testing. There we have our own lab in Georgia where we do PCR testing, and we have the CPAS, neutralizing antibody test, which can measure basically how much immunity you have with respect to COVID. So we can test whether you have a certain titer, a degree of protection, and how much, and then you can start to see if it comes down, how much it comes down, and whether or not you should think about a booster shot. That's the purpose of it, to give you more information as you empower you and your physician to make that decision. And then beyond that, in COVID, we did a joint venture with one of our other Israeli colleagues, NLC Pharma, around a specific biology in COVID called the 3CL protease. What that is effectively the food the virus needs to replicate and then to exit the cell. So what that 3CL protease, if you measure it, it can tell you whether the virus is still replicating, because if it's not there, then you may have dead virus that you're still testing positive by PCR, but you've recovered and you're not infectious. Also, you may be able to find it earlier because you actually need 70 3CL particles for every one virus particle. So, there's a lot more of it, so you can find it earlier. And then as we did that, we got involved with them on a therapeutic side. So we have two areas on ingestibles.
Right.
One is wellness, and then one is therapeutic pharmaceutical. Our pharmaceutical product, which is obviously most interesting, is Tolovir. We currently have it in a phase 2 clinical trial in Israel with hospitalized COVID-19 patients, and we released data about a week and a half ago that showed there was a clear benefit in a comparable patient group from around the time of the trials. And now we have a phase 2 ongoing with interim data coming up in the next several weeks. Beyond that, we really think this could be used because it's a 3CL protease inhibitor, which is the same mechanism of action as Pfizer. Our compound is the natural version. With the natural version, you get, let's call it, more effect around it. From other compounds that also have an anti-cytokine activity. So we have both the anti-cytokine and antiviral activity for Tolovir. So that's in hospitalized patients. Ultimately, we think we can use it earlier over time. But being a small company, we have to focus our resources where we could have the biggest benefit over our competitors. Merck, about a week and a half ago, announced their molnupiravir data with their oral antiviral. Obviously, that showed a reduction in death, which is very promising. There are a lot of questions popping up about the safety profile around that for long-term, widespread use, but it's certainly a great advance. We think we can benefit because theirs didn't work in the hospitalized setting where we're focused. And then we have on the wellness side, basically the similar ingredients to Tolovir, but less concentrated, Tolovid, which is a wellness product. So we're not making any therapeutic claims as it relates to Tolovid. But we have two formulations, Tolovid Daily, which you can take twice a day. The claims we've been allowed to say are that it's an immune support and a 3CL protease inhibitor. And then we have Tolovid Daily, which is basically a daily version. Both of them, Tolovid and Tolovid Daily, are on the market. We have them on Amazon. Tolovid just a much higher dose over about a 5-day period.
Wonderful. So apart from COVID, impacting the business in a means of research and creating products to support, the post thereafter, COVID, what operational challenges did it pose for you guys?
COVID?
Yeah.
Obviously, completely changed our business. We were focused on being, a breast cancer company. We weren't planning to really, build revenue and have a commercial operation.
Right.
But as the pandemic hit, we luckily had in basically our midst a lab that had PCR capability when
Right.
almost none existed. And so we leveraged that to build up a revenue stream. So for
Right.
us, it ended up turning out to be something positive.
Yeah.
And certainly, with the 3CL protease, we also have a test, the 3CL protease Tolo test. There we just released data. So that will help you determine earlier whether you have there's an infection than potentially antigen,
Right.
and maybe earlier than PCR. We do have some data to suggest that that could be the case. And then we have the use on release from the hospital. Oftentimes what happens is people in the hospital setting, they have COVID, they're in a quarantine phase for a certain number of days, and they start to feel better and they can clear the hospital, but nobody knows they're still infectious. And so we've shown that some people, get released after all the criteria, but still have this 3CL protease lingering, and they may be infectious to, to people.
Wonderful. So we see that Toliver, I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Toliver is currently for sale.
Tolovir, no, that is a pharmaceutical grade product that's in clinical trials in Israel. So that is not for sale in the U.S. No.
Right.
That's it. We expect data coming out on that, and hopefully over time we can get an emergency use authorization. The Tolovid product, the dietary supplement, for which there are no claims, yes, it's for sale. We sell it on mytolovid.com, where you can subscribe for on a monthly delivery of Tolovid Daily, on Amazon and on Alibaba.
Wonderful. I've noticed some testing happening here at the Aldi Micro. Can you tell us more about that?
Pardon?
I've noticed some actual testing happening at the conference we're currently at. Can you expand on that?
Sure. So no, we are the official testing sponsor for the conference. So, Chris wanted to make available testing for people who just wanted to confirm their status, know they're safe.
Right.
And we also are helping people with answer some of the questions they may have about immunity. So we have blood draws for the CPAS testing, and people are measuring their antibodies. So this is all being done through Provista Diagnostics, with our nursing staff helping make this work. So it's quite important.
Wonderful. It seems like there should be a new normal, having testing available so readily at any kind of public gathering with these multiple people. Why is that not happening more?
Well, there are a lot of political reasons in our opinion of the response, and unfortunately it's become very politicized that nothing happens.
Right.
I think there were decisions that had to be made of choice, vaccine or testing, because of the infrastructure of the U.S. healthcare system. And when that decision to move towards vaccination, which was a good decision at the time, really moved the needle, that was great, but it hurt the testing infrastructure. And so I think the Delta variant really was the difference in terms of changing the need for testing, because it was just spreading so much faster. So unfortunately that didn't happen. For us as a company, we saw declines in revenue in the second quarter and the third quarter because of that. But now I think people are realizing exactly what you said. We can't stay home forever.
Right.
Why wouldn't you want to know if somebody walked in with COVID? I think everybody would want to know to the extent that we could. And as long as it's easily available, I think, and accurate, I think it will become part of the norm.
Wonderful. Going forward, what are the growth strategies in place for Todos?
So our plan with our 3CL protease inhibitor products, we're going to put those into a subsidiary, and those are going to be self-financed, because that, taking on big pharma with Tolovir is it's a big expense, and we do think that there's significant interest in seeing something like that really take off. Todos as a diagnostic company, we still very much believe in our breast cancer tests, and we need to get those tests to market. So those are important tests for the marketplace. And with the testing business that we now have, I think if we can focus our resources on the diagnostic area, we can build the most value for shareholders while still controlling the subsidiary, that will itself, do potentially, very significant things in the
Right.
area of COVID and overall 3CL protease inhibitor technology.
Wonderful. So I think this leads me into the next takeaway that you want our viewers, potential investors, or current investors to take away from this interview. What is important for them to know?
Well, we're a company that does a lot of things, and when you look at it that way, sometimes it looks jumbled. We have a very clear strategy. We're a diagnostics company that had to jump into COVID. We leveraged that to create what we think is a lot of potential value for us and our shareholders, and now we see that as the next phase of taking it forward, especially with the Tolavir trials moving forward. Um, that is the key. Our plan to execution is to get uplisted to NASDAQ sometime in the near future. We think that that's where the shareholder will see the greatest benefit.
Right.
And so now we're just focused on, taking, diligent prosecution of the pathway to limit, the risks and to focus on getting to where we need to go. Because if we are right in, our assessment of the marketplace, the market opportunity, the competition, and our strategy, we stand to, do a lot of good for mankind.
100%, 100%. Mentioning, the uplist potentially in the future to NASDAQ, there are specific things that need to be in place for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of steps are being taken currently to help you guys get there in terms of shareholder volumes and stock price, etc.?
Well, it seems like our shareholder base is growing, certainly, which is great. I think people are starting to uncover the story and the potential. And people like natural solutions.
Right.
I think, say what you will, vaccine, anti-vax. I think the discussion around, how things come to market, what level of data is needed, how you can, impact people in this way is open, and so that has changed the landscape quite a bit
Right.
in terms of how things move forward. So as we think about the next steps with COVID, we think it's really all about the oral antivirals.
100%, totally agree. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Where can investors or viewers just find out more?
You can find out at www.todosmedical.com or follow us on Twitter.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gerald. That was great.